It's Calgary 2023 Outlook time. In my first market update of this year, I'll be discussing what you can expect to see with your greater Calgary real estate here in 2023. Let's get to it. So as I have mentioned previously, the month of December is not an important month for real estate related data. It's always a month where the market is in a state of slowdown and kind of like an overall reset. So if you just wanted to know and look closely, you'd see, well, the total homes on the market dropped, in our case, from about 3,100 to start the month, all the way down in the region to about 2,200. This has created a new record low at this time of the year, meaning not a lot out there to buy. You'd also see the amount of new properties coming to market hits a yearly low at this time. In our case, just over 1,000 new homes came to the market. Nothing new here. It's what happens every year. And with that, you'll also see it was our slowest sales month of the year. This year, we recorded just over 1,200, same as we did in 2020, 2013, and 2007, all ranking as the second best December in our history. All this being said, our sales month was in good company. But none of these specific monthly stats matter to the overall 2022 outlook. What matters is how we as a region are positioned going into the new year in our new phase of the annual real estate cycle. So January is generally a wake up, or I like to say a hangover month to December. Buyers, they start to slowly perk up and start looking again. Online searches for housing start to increase. Sellers start to put their homes back on the market if they're the ones that took them off for the holidays. And then new listings that consciously chose to wait to list, they start to do so as the month unfolds. So the better question is not what to expect right now, it's what we should be expecting this year. For this, we need to look outside the region's data. Let's start with the macro worldwide stuff. Number one, oil prices. It's no secret, our region is still highly linked to the ups and downs of the worldwide oil markets. And as a result, we benefited as the Brent crude and WTI prices climbed while the world was bustling these last few years. We are currently starting the year with an oil price right around $80 a barrel. And looking at the predictions for the year, we're largely expected to remain near this figure, boding well for our largest employment sector and overall employment health here in the region. And speaking of that, Alberta is sitting at an unemployment rate of just 5.8, which is a fair amount lower than our average long-term, which is 6.55, and down nearly 2 full points from this time last year. All right, number two, let's talk about the big elephant in the room, driving all the markets around the world, our inflation and our consumer price index. So the silver lining of those 7 interest rate changes in 2022 is that we are starting to see inflation drop nationwide. We peaked, as you can see by the graph, in around June, just above 8 points. And now we sit just above 6. And then further to this, you can see on the screen the economics forecast for where predictions are for inflation throughout the balance of 2023 is. If things go as planned, we will be by the end of the year down around 3 and then moving into the 2s in 2024. Now I need to pause and get my jab right in to the policymakers once again. For those of us here in Alberta, did you know what makes up the CPI index in Canada anyways? Well, so here it is. Shelter accounts for 30% of the total index weight. Then transportation at 17%, food at 16%, and then household operations, furnishings, and equipment at 15%. And then it just goes lower and lower with things like recreation, education, health, personal care, alcohol, tobacco, etc. So with shelter, or in other words, housing, making up 30% of the index, you can see why the government got completely spooked by the housing prices in Greater Toronto and Greater Vancouver markets. And thus they had to make the decision to drive rates off of the ground floor like they did last year. But for us in Alberta, our housing did not, over the last 7 to 8 years, drive upwards in any meaningful way. Thus our Alberta-based inflation, or CPI index, was not an issue regionally. Yet we had no choice but to get punished by those ludicrous speculative markets in other parts of our country. But I digress, because I wanted to share this because most people don't really understand the intricacies of inflation and how it actually works anyways. And also, this may help paint the overall picture of why Alberta continues to be the shining light of Canada and a stable place for people and profits to come. It's surely about housing affordability. It's also about economic opportunity. And as we've discussed, it's more than that. This brings me to point number 3 and to another amazing article put out by The Economist this past year. What you'll see is Calgary ranks atop the list of best places to live in North America. This study doesn't focus on housing prices as its major indicator at all. It takes into account everything else. Things like culture, environment, crime, infrastructure, healthcare, education, how we handled the pandemic, lifestyle options, and so much more. And yes, we won in 2022, but we've also topped this list 2 other times in the last decade. Those here in the Calgary region know how good we have it. But again, the world continues to take notice. So now this brings me to my final summarizing points in this update. Let's talk about our real estate for the year. We've now concluded that interest rates will be held near where they are for now for the balance of 2023 to ensure that overall Canadian inflation comes down to the numbers that they're hoping for. We've also said oil prices are predicted to remain right close to where they are, or maybe just slightly below due to the worldwide recession causing a little bit lower demand. And 3, we are being seen globally as a go-to destination for life, for lifestyle, people, and profits. And if you remember from the very beginning of this update, I shared our final position of the year with our December housing data. What did that say? Lowest amount of homes on the market out there to buy. I also said continued buyer demand with us equaling the second best December in all of our history. It should be no surprise that this forecast for this year is an increase in our property values once again. Check out this Global News article where predictions are to climb upwards of 7%. Or on this Remax housing market outlook, stating we will be in a seller's market for the year, growing our average sale price by nearly $50,000. Again, that's about 7%. Personally, I can't see a case where this could ever be wrong unless they simply projected too low out of caution for this narrative being awkwardly received against the rest of most of the world's challenges. So, as I said last month, for those of us in Greater Calgary, your real estate is by far the safest place to be right now. And if you have a need or a want to buy, we'll do it with confidence, knowing that now is the cheapest time to do so ever again in our housing market. The sky's not falling, nothing is dropping. The demand wave continues to push in a controlled, economically sound, fundamental way, just like nature intended. So that's it for today. Well, Happy New Year's, and thanks for watching us here again on Redline TV. If you are in need of some help for your specific situation, just drop us a comment or email us at inquire@redlinerealestate.ca so that we can hook you up with a specialist from our group of over 90 agents in the region. And please be sure to drop me a comment, and share with the friends that should be hearing this message. See you again next month.